Greetings. Thank you to everyone for coming out today for this group author reading. This reading is brought to you by Strong Women, Strange Worlds, which is a group of authors supporting authors. Our mission is to elevate the voices of women and non-binary authors of science fiction, fantasy, and horror through events like our bi-monthly virtual quick read sessions. You can find out more about Strong Women and Strange Worlds in the handout that we will provide in the chat and by visiting our website. A link of this will be added to the chat. And I'd also like to take a moment to thank I'm so sorry. I'd also like to take a moment to thank those who have made a tip jar donation. Very important. We thank you and appreciate you so much. I am your surprise hostess today, Angela Yuriko Smith, and you can find out more about me in the provided handout as well. Please note the recording of this session by the audience is not allowed, and recording of electronic communications, including Zoom meetings and webinars without permission, is illegal. Tonight, we will be featuring 6 authors. We have Vanessa Reid, Grech, Aimee Pichi, O.F. Cieri, Shawnelle Gibbs, and Patti Larsen. And each author will have 8 minutes to read. Our first reader is Vanessa Reid. Vanessa Reid is an English teacher in Atlanta who writes about the human monsters that hunt us and haunt us. A member of the Broadleaf Writers Association and the Horror Writers Association, Reid lives with her adorably macabre family, an evil cat named Moreland, and a dog who tries to avoid his wrath. Vanessa, please take it away.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm Vanessa Reid, and tonight I'll be reading the beginning of my short story, Everything is Okay. I'm also giving away a copy of the 4th Corona Book of Horror stories, which contains my short story, Sunday Supper. He broke my daughter's heart that day. That's how I ended up there, folded around her in her tiny childhood bed, one large spoon cradling a smaller one. She slept hard, and her faded blush quilt dotted with vanishing roses draped over us. A few more washes and the yellow ones would be gone. I was holding her so fiercely, my shoulders ached. She shifted slightly, and I heard her sigh. She'll be all right. She's tougher than she looks, but I'm not sure I am. I buried my face in her corn silk hair and inhaled the warm honey scent that surrounded her since they ripped her out of me. She didn't want to come either. She was 2 ornery weeks late. She even tried to breathe in my belly, to live there forever. That's when I knew they'd have to pull her out. They wanted to cut me, but I said no, not after 4 hours of labor and 2 hours of pushing. But after she finally slid out in a hot, bloody gush, they cleaned her, I held her, and she smelled like warm honey every day after. I turned to bury my face in her neck to breathe her in more deeply. She would wake soon, and she would cry a little more, take a shower, and go back to her dorm. She visited less and less, called less and less. So for that moment, I buried my face in her velvety neck and inhaled. A few strands of her silky fine hair stuck to my lips. Overcome by the scent of honey, I touched my tongue tentatively to the strands. Instead of irritating my mouth, her hair melted against my tongue like sponge sugar. I rolled the sweetness around in my mouth, feeling it liquefy, candied warmth that slipped down my throat. I closed my eyes and followed its glimmer down my esophagus and into my belly where it tickled, radiating sunshine and light. I opened my mouth wider, taking a great greedy bite this time, and her hair dissolved into a punch of hot sugar while I swallowed in one bruising gulp. It hit my blood and my insides turned and crawled, arguing and rearranging themselves while my daughter breathed softly. My heart pounded and I pulled away to avoid waking her with my spasming belly. Then it quieted. Relieved, I slid back into my place and curled around my daughter, but something great shifted inside me. She must have felt it too because she stirred, and I pulled her closer. But before I could settle against her again, a hot rush swiped my gut like a burning iron, twisting from the inside. I looked down and lifted my nightgown. I watched with horrified excitement as a line sunk into my belly from stem to stern, like sand slipping into a silent desert earthquake. A golden light glowed beneath my stretching skin, and as the line pulled open, its rays sprayed upward, coloring my daughter in a sparkling straw glow. Then the split spread feverishly, and when I saw its perfection, I knew it was an entrance. I pulled my gown over my head, tossed it to the floor, and quietly scooted my naked body against hers. Then I gently pulled her inside me. I knew that I had to go slow for fear of waking her. I didn't want to scare her. She'd had enough pain for one night. The streak along me had become a glowing cavern, allowing her to sink into me, and my body split seamlessly, enveloping her torso, her hips, her legs, her feet. The seam of my skin slipped around her as an envelope, like a pink velvet pouch, and as I pressed her shoulders into my chest and her sweet head began to follow, she turned to me, eyes still closed in weary sleep. "Mama?" she asked softly. "Shh, baby, it's okay." Then my body sealed up cleanly around her, and the glorious light went out. She was gone. But she wasn't. She was inside me again. I could feel her weight. She fit perfectly inside me. Perfect. Safe. I looked at her body's indentions on the sheets, and put my palm on the bed. Still warm. She had been there. It had happened. I rubbed my flat belly. There was no outward sign, but she was there. I could feel her. Her solid weight filled me. I sat up, eased off the bed, firmly put my feet on the floor, and stood up. No, it wasn't a burden. She was there, but instead of me feeling heavy and awkward, she rooted my body to the floor. The connection was solid and strong. I took a tentative step. Yes, it was more than me, but it was a sure step. I took another, and they were good steps. I walked faster. I paced the room until I knew my body again. I scooped up my nightgown, pulled it over my head, and went to the window. The afternoon was waning with the late winter sun holding on. The birds hopped hopefully from the ground to the tree limbs and back again, and I knew where I must take her before dark. Her favorite place as a child, Bonnie Fountain Memorial Park. In the shower, I marveled at my absoluteness, the gentle movements and warm water soothing us both. She continued to sleep, so I moved tenderly, caressing my belly lovingly with the washcloth. It wasn't bulging like the first time she was inside me, but the familiar movement was unconscious. I dried myself slowly, dressed warmly, and headed for the 5-block walk to the park. Her daddy and I used to push the stroller together, his hand on the right handle and mine on the left. When she was old enough to walk by herself, he held her right hand and I held her left. It's funny how we stuck to our side. After he died, I still held her left hand. Even when she was too old, she still let me. Now I walk with heavy, sure steps, both hands on my belly, feeling her solidness inside me. I pass a jogger. She didn't know. She looked ahead and blew great puffs of hot mist into the cold air. How much she missed. If only she knew, she would want to stop and touch me, touch my belly, ask about her. What was she like? How she was magic. I passed an old man with a small dog, and he tipped his hat graciously and smiled. I'm not sure if he knew. He may have, or perhaps he was just being polite. I've always liked old men in hats. They knew the right kind of world, the slow, generous one, the one you took time with. But his dog sure knew. The little white fluffy creature pranced right up, tail wagging furiously. When he nosed my stomach familiarly and head-butted me for scratches, the old man marveled. Minnow doesn't like anyone. He smells my daughter. She must be special, he grinned. She is. Headed to the park? I nodded. It was a fine day for it, but it's getting late, miss. He tipped his hat and pulled Minnow on. When we reached the park, I knew exactly where to go, her favorite spot. We reached the ancient oak tree just as a young couple packed up their picnic. They smiled as they headed on their way, blanket and basket in hand, and I believe she winked at me. Women just know. I sat cross-legged under the tree, feeling the cool breeze lift my hair, and I closed my eyes. Memories of her nursing her under this tree, her greedy slurps earning her daddy's nickname Gobble. She hated that. And her daddy creating the most fanciful picnics under this tree, complete with fairy cakes and sparkling cider. She and her friends playing on the jungle gym at the bottom of the hill, while other parents and I watched and shared fears and milestones. She told me she'd had her first kiss when she was in 9th grade here. Stephen Pierce. His braces cut her lip, but he had the prettiest eyes, she said. We love this place, this tree, these moments.
Absolutely beautiful and frightening and way to stay close to your children, I will say. that that was beautiful. Thank you so much for doing that, Vanessa. I'm in the Q&A. I want to know where the story idea came from. That was great. All right. Well, next we have Amy Grech coming up. Amy Grech has sold over 100 short stories to various anthologies and magazines. Alien Buddha Press published her poetry chapbook, A Shadow of Your Former Self. Amy, over to you.
Thank you, Angela. I'll be reading from that very chapbook that you mentioned, A Shadow of Your Former Self, published by Alien Buddha Press. I'm reading the title poem. Rich or poor, you never know what's in store. The virus doesn't discriminate. It's the cause of great debate. Thousands of people won't survive. What a time to be alive. How best to prevent the spread and limit the number of dead. Social distance, some resistance. Gone tomorrow or here to stay. It's impossible to say. So close yet so far, 6 feet apart, breaks your heart. Wear a mask as a sign of respect, one less person to infect. Dreams deferred, undeterred, you forge ahead, not better off dead. COVID-19 antibody test causes civil unrest. Negative results, you're in the clear, one less thing to fear. If antibodies are present, you resent self-imposed quarantine. Endless Zoom calls, so mentally draining, you aren't the only one complaining. This new normal seems anything but. You carry on no matter what. Ensconced in a protective bubble, you hoard supplies, hoping to avoid trouble. Amazon, FedEx, UPS provide contactless delivery, an endless onslaught of essentials, so much untapped potential. The struggle is real. You don't know exactly how to feel. Some days you're perfectly content to spend streaming Disney Plus, HBO, Hulu, Netflix, Prime Video, Showtime, Shudder, so sublime. Other days you wake up screaming, order takeout with reckless abandon, tie for lunch from your favorite place, sushi for dinner, such an expensive disgrace. You spend hours texting friends. Will this mindless boredom ever end? Weeks pass and you're scrambling to pay rent. An unexpected email from the head of talent at the creative firm where you had a cushy job. Notice all projects are on hold, catches you off guard. Sometimes the world can be so cold. As a consultant, you didn't need to leave your Brooklyn apartment to make a buck. Talk about dumb luck. A shadow of your former self. Suddenly, you're without wealth. Your finances have become a house of cards. Now you're rummaging through shards, lost in a momentary state of panic until you realize you were hired as a W-2 employee. That makes you eligible for unemployment. Apply is something you quickly do. You discover, too, that due to COVID-19, you may qualify for an additional $600 per week. You shriek with joy. The pandemic, rife with strife, won't destroy your quality of life, or so it seems. You have plenty of hopes and dreams. Thank you.
Wow. Well, that really kind of refreshed the whole event to me, which I love the poetry, Amy, but I'm not sure I wanted to remember all that. Good job bringing back
That's
the horror.
fair. But we all lived through it, Angela. That's the point, right?
We did. We're here and we're wiser. And we also realize you cannot survive on Ben and Jerry's financially or otherwise.
Exactly.
So I tried. Well, awesome. Thank you so much. All right. Our third reader tonight is Aimee Pichi. Aimee Pichi is a journalist by day and Nebula nominated science fiction and fantasy writer by night. Her short fiction has been published in Apex, The Deadlines, Nightmare, and Podcastle, among other fine publications. She lives in Burlington, Vermont with her family. Take it away, Amy.
Thanks, Angela. So I write a lot of flash fiction, and this is a short story that was published last year in Nightmare Magazine. And because it's flash, you're going to get to hear the whole story from beginning to end. And I'll just put a plug in for a flash fiction piece I have coming out in July in Lightspeed Magazine. So that will be out in a few months. All right. 9 lies you tell yourself about ghost hunting. 1. This first part isn't a lie. As you follow the gentleman ghost hunter, his rucksack stuffed with tools of the trade, salt, holy water, knives, and crucifixes with tiny muscled Jesuses glued to the wood, pride swells inside you. He's internet famous, even has a TV show in the works, and he picked you as his new partner. You think, who cares I'm not a gentleman or even a man? You tweeted about joining the gentleman. #equality, #feminism. You think it'll be different this time. Now that last part, that's your first lie. 2, you tell yourself the voice inside your head, my voice, reflects your own anxieties. You don't want to consider the alternative, that you're haunted, because the gentleman insists ghosts only want to hurt people, not help them. 3, let me tell you a story. There was once a woman who joined the gentleman and fought at his side. Sammy wisecracked with him. She didn't mind when the gentleman made innuendos or pretended she didn't. When women blocked him on social media, she agreed females could be real bitches. Who did that skank even think she was? The night she died, Sammy's rucksack held an empty vial of salt, a broken crucifix, and an unsent postcard addressed to her sister. Having a great time. You tell yourself the same lie. You're having an absolutely fucking wicked good time. 4, the gentleman is a club of 1, but 1 is an unstable number, a lonely number. He needs a sidekick, someone who will praise his deeds, order takeout, clean the dishes, someone to stand in the line of fire when he's about to lose it all. You aren't a dummy. You know you aren't the first. But as you dig through his archives, you learn you aren't even second or third. There have been 7, all who perished in the ghost hunters' battles. First Sammy, and then Bethany, Jennifer, Taylor, Gowrie, Maggie, and Lola. You tell yourself that you can change him, that you are a family, and that he'll care for you and protect you, no matter what. 5, you know from your research the sidekicks died at Undercroft Manse, the place that's haunted the gentleman his entire life. The details are sketchy, but the events follow the same arc. A fierce battle arose between the gentleman and the manse's ghosts. And when the fight was about to be lost, a sidekick sacrificed herself to save the gentleman. You tell yourself the sidekicks made noble sacrifices. You really believe it. 6, you're prepping for the gentleman's return to Undercroft Manse. This time, he says, he'll finally rout its evil. You ask about his past sidekicks, and his voice tinges with husky regret. None of them are tough enough. None of them had the balls to do what he does. As he caps a vial of holy water, he asks if you've got what it takes to survive. Your hand rests on the smooth wood of the crucifix, and you really believe it when you tell him you are the smart girl, the strong girl, the girl who can turn everything around. 7, you had envisioned a Victorian heap, roof tiles broken and turrets collapsing under the weight of gravity and neglect. You trudge behind the gentleman as he leads you down a dirt road, and Undercroft Man slides into view. It's a 1960s split level with an attached 2-car garage. It's someone's abandoned domestic fantasy, as curtains tattered, glass windows shattered. The gentleman points you toward the kitchen for backup position. A magnet presses a faded photo to the fridge, parents and a boy, with the same intent expression as the gentleman. Stare from the snapshot. In the corner of the kitchen are the remains of a woman wearing jeans and a green flannel shirt. You shiver when you see the postcard that has fallen out of her rucksack. Having a great time. You tell yourself ghosts are abominations that deserve to be driven to hell. 8, the gentleman throws the works at the ghosts, holy water, crucifixes, arcs of salt. But the ghosts are quick, and they dart around him like they know his strategies and skills. There's something at work here that you can't understand, a history between the house and the gentleman, deep, rotting roots that don't belong to you. He's held there by family ties, things that he can't release and that force him to return again and again, bringing his sidekicks as reinforcements. The gentleman screams at you to get your heart in the game. He's right, you tell yourself. Now is not the time to doubt whether his fight is also yours. 9, the gentleman is losing. He demands you step between him and the ghost that is all about sacrificing yourself for the greater good. He says he'd do the same for you. It's then that you notice me, a ghost with a green flannel shirt, ink-stained fingers from a leaky ballpoint pen. I whisper your name, and you recognize my voice. I think you finally understand a haunt sometimes wants to save people. The gentleman is calling. He screams, then pleads he'll die without you. I'll be honest, you're not the first I've haunted. Every sidekick has heard my whispered truths, my stories about postcards and lies. For a moment, I worry you'll make the same mistake as all of us, starting with me and following with all those who came after, that you'll fail to see the lies for what they are until it's too late. But then you turn your back to the gentleman and pluck the yellow postcard from my rucksack. You tuck the postcard in your pocket and turn your back to the kitchen and head for the front door. It's then you tell yourself a lie to save yourself. The gentleman will survive on his own. Thanks.
Wow. There was so much tension in that countdown. That was like watching a horror movie play out, and somehow empowering and hopeful and beautiful. Thank you so much for that. That was fantastic, and good luck with everything.
Thanks.
And now let us get to some more amazing reading. Our fourth reader is O.F. Cieri. O.F. Cieri writes weird speculative fiction with the aim of taking apart established tropes. I love that, and I am ready to see some deconstruction happening in the reading. Welcome.
Speaking of deconstructing narratives, this piece begins with a series of museum placards. It's called Thief Line, and you will get this if you sign up for my newsletter today. Placard 1122. Item, daggers. Mycenaean, constructed out of silver and gold in Grave Circle A, Mycenae, Greece. Date, 1550 to 1500 BCE. 1124. Item, or thief line, decorative sword for an unidentified king, 9th century BC. Possible origin Carthage. Materials, brass blade, lapis lazuli inlay, 1, 2, 4, jade, inlay 3. 1126. Item, thief line, decorative sword, 1530, current era. Attributed to King Lauros of the Tidani Regency. Materials, silver blade, gold handle. Both blade and handle feature a beautiful and intricate design, displaying a stylized rose petal with the name of the royal princess Shawnelle worked into the blade. 1128. Item, the Queen's Keep, decorative sword, 1745 AD. Materials, traditional silver blade, ivory handle with emerald accents. Origin Dutch. Dedicated in memoriam to Franklin von Halsen. A steady hand. According to legend, a wise general once revealed his mastery of his own troops by stopping a soldier's hand as he attempted to steal from another under the cover of darkness. Our first recorded instance of the story comes from Herodotus, who claimed to have heard it in Phrygia. The apocryphal tale inspired a practice of affixing known thieves to boards by wedging a metal blade in between thumb and forefinger. The myth would endure through the centuries, but adapting to fit the times. In medieval Europe, the thief's line was known to humiliate thieves and adulterers alike, forcing all men to stand before an inquisition with their dominant hand impaled before them. Thief's line refers to an archaic term for mistletoe, whose branches were boiled to produce a sticky sap used to catch wild game. The practice of hanging mistletoe in a doorway to catch a potential romantic partner is another example of this metaphor. During the Renaissance, some explorers claimed that the thief's line was used throughout Asia to control the wayward daughters of local nobility. They claimed the practice was meant to instill humility, but instead prompted admiration for any girl afflicted by it. Reports from within Iran suggest that the queen's line was not a practice, but a fable of a rich man who fastened his daughter to the back of his horse with his short sword to parade her before the city, like a thief, but only to discover it attracted even more admirers. But Europeans were intrigued, and a style emerged for carrying an ornamental sword, which men could use to symbolically pierce their wives, daughters, or respective mistresses. In fact, the practice grew so popular that one writer wrote, "Men across Europe who find themselves married to a plain girl of the country arm themselves enough to take on Satan's legion." The queen's line held an unusual importance similar to the wedding ring in that it was an ornament worn by a man to signify his association with a woman. Unlike contemporary wedding rings, the queen's line was a costly, ostentatious burden that could carry an unkind implication, yet remained in vogue for many years. The illustration on the left, 283, shows several young men piling swords, guns, and even a cannon before the feet of a woman in a military outfit, while the caption reads, "The general takes stock of her armaments." The final blow. The Queen's line went in and out of fashion over the years, but the final nail in the coffin was World War I. As surplus metal was melted down to join the war effort, the Queen's line was seen as an embarrassing and extraneous relic. By the 1920s, the Queen's line was the product of a bygone age. To quote, "Found himself engulfed by a throng of white-whiskered old men with the distended throat of bullfrogs, who all clattered like fireworks when one got his jeweled sword entangled in the chain of another. The parade of apologies further entwined would continue until the men were all last separated and sat in different corners of the room. Many of these men were military and willingly relinquished their fighting blades at the door for the sake of etiquette, yet none would stoop so low as to remove the sword of Damocles they held over their wives, who twittered like aged songbirds throughout the room. A weapon reforged." The Queen's line made a slow resurgence in the 1960s with the rise of the countercultural movement. In this new incarceration, it took a purely feminine aspect and seemed to hint at the original Persian myth. Figure 1, Nancy Sinatra appears in the Philadelphia-based television program Teen Hop with a sword-shaped belt. Figure 2, in a later episode of Bewitched, the Queen's line is reimagined as the Witch's Bane, which prevents Samantha from using her powers. Figure 3, the Shangri-La's third studio recording features a song entitled "Don't Stop My Hand," which features allusions to the Queen's line. Members of the New Age movement, such as Aleister Crowley and Alexander and Maxine Sanders, also used sword imagery in their rituals. From the fringes of the new religious movement, the Queen's line entered popular culture. Figure 1, Rolling Stone spread featuring Mick Jagger with a ritualistic Masonic blade, 1973. Figure 2, Alice Cooper album concept art, which showed the performer pinned before a jury in a reference to the original use of the thief's line. Figure 3, still from Kenneth Anger's film Invocation of My Demon Brother, which shows the director wielding a sword. Today, the Queen's line exists as a long-held tradition with controversial origins. It is beloved by a wide swath of people and hated by an equally large margin. It has been reimagined and forgotten countless times throughout the years. This museum welcomes you to view the exhibit and come to your own conclusions. And as a final note, this book is illustrated. Thank you.
Thank you. I am glad the book is illustrated because I'm trying to picture all this amazing, fascinating historical details. And I was like, I can't picture all this. I need to see this. That's amazing and historically horrifying. Thank you so much. All right. Well, we are cooking along. Our fifth reader will be Shawnelle Gibbs. The Gibbs sisters, which is Shawnee Gibbs and Shawnelle Gibbs, are the authors of the HarperCollins YA graphic novel, Ghost Roast. The award-winning writing team have written for DreamWorks Animation and Marvel Comics' Women of Marvel anthology. Originally from Oakland, California, they currently work, live, and play in Los Angeles. Welcome, Shawnelle.
Hello, hello. Thank you very much for that introduction. I will be reading from Ghost Roast, which will be available in the giveaway paperback. So the story we're dropping in where our protagonist, Chelsea, is on her first big mission with her dad, who is a ghost hunter. They are at the Harrington Manor, which is also a former plantation in New Orleans. And Chelsea has been seeing presences on the property, and in particular, a little ghost, a spirit of a cat. So this time we're going to get in where she sees the presence with her team, which includes her father and an assistant. And there may be some visual aid as I read here from the book. So I'll get started right here. So, here we are. Oh yeah, and you'll probably see cross marks there. It's from pre-printed, so this is a little behind the scenes. So Doug, her father, says, "Wait a minute, it can't be. I'm getting a reading already." Interesting. I'm getting a faint electromagnetic reading at the end of the hallway. Russ, would you go and grab the ghost roaster gun? Looks like you guys are going to get a hands-on demonstration on how to eradicate a presence. Russ, yes. Did you say eradicate? What do you think we're here to do? Invite them to stay for tea? We could politely ask them to leave. The signature's on the move. Hurry, Russ. This is the caption for Chelsea. Oh, God. It's right there. Mr. Grant, I've got it. Here, Russ, hold the EMF meter so I can get an accurate shot. Then we see the spirit cat here named Roman, who's just licking himself there. Goodbye, ghost. What the? The reading is off the charts. In this direction. Chelsea says to herself, it's a boy. And this is the first time we see Oliver, the ghost hunting the mansion. Stand back, guys. I think I got it. I think we lost it. Chelsea is silent. Whoa. 30 minutes later. Whoa. 1 hour later. Whoa. 2 hours later, back at home. Whoa. Chelsea, come out for grub. It's your favorite, Grandma's jambalaya. You better not be up there playing around on that laptop. You're still grounded, you know. Chelsea, Oh, what's wrong, honey? Just thinking about work stuff. Anything you want to talk about? Let me know if your dad is being too hard on you. He doesn't understand sometimes that not everybody is a ghost geek like him. It's not that at all. I guess I'm not used to holding down a 9 to 5. I would bring you a bola, but I can't shake the memory of the last time you had jambalaya in bed. When I spilled it and tried to cover it up, the room stank to the high heavens for weeks. We've got a job over at the Harrington Manor on River Road. Oh, wow, that place is gorgeous and actually really creepy, since they haven't been doing a good job of keeping it up, right? The Harringtons are one of those old Louisiana families whose legacy is still very much alive today. We've been trying to get them to make the manor a national landmark for years at the Preservation Society. That's the real work that needs to be done there, not silly ghost hunting. I didn't say that, Chelsea. I don't know if you know this, but I had ears the first 12 years of my life. I remember those arguments you and Dad had. It was a tough time. I know, Mom. Tough for all of us. But wouldn't it be crazy if I actually saw the ghost at the manor? A ghost at the manor? What? A ghost? Did you see something? Did you tell your dad? It was a hypothetical question, Mom. Caption, that's the thing about parents. They always want the truth, but they can never handle it. If you see anything, Chelsea, definitely let your dad know, okay? The spiritual world is nothing to play around with, and he's the expert. As skeptical as I am about the supernatural, this is New Orleans. I've heard my share of tales since I was knee-high to a mosquito. You remember that story about your grandma Hazel? Caption, here we go. To make a long story short, Dad had a grandmother named Hazel who was pretty much the most amazing and loving woman in the world. She rescued Dad from a pretty effed up early home life. On top of that, Grandma Hazel was a talented sage who was sought after in the neighborhood for her gift of connecting the living and the dead. People would consult his grandma for all kinds of spiritual advice. But one day, while helping a family friend with a home cleansing, and not the kind where you use a mop, Grandma Hazel encountered a horribly dark and unruly spirit. She suffered a stroke during the encounter. And Dad made a vow to get even with the spirit world with what he believed it did to her. So there you have it. More spirits and more kooky stuff too bizarre to talk about. Why couldn't Grandma Hazel be known for doing something normal like baking pies? And back in the house is Mom. I truly believe that's what motivates your dad to get up every morning, bringing justice for his Grandma Hazel. You better believe if there's any kind of disturbance at that manor, your dad will find it and get rid of it. That's what I'm afraid of. Not only that weird gift, but having to help my dad blast an adorable dead cat and a mysterious dead kid into the ether. And that's my reading with beautiful illustrations by Emily Cannon.
The illustrations are stunning. Your reading was stunning. That family felt so realistic. And I kind of wonder if the ghost guy wasn't a little bit cute. And so maybe that's also some of that reluctance. Like, you had a cute cat and a cute ghost boy. So I feel like I can see where this might go. And I also would be reluctant to get rid of him. But thank you so much, Shawnelle. That was awesome. And now we are down to our final reader. Yes, it's true. I'm so sorry, everybody. But we are almost near the end. Our final reader is Patti Larsen. Patti Larsen is a U.S. Today best-selling international multiple award-winning writer of over 200 titles. She lives in beautiful Prince Edward Island, Canada, with her plethora of pets. And now, please welcome Patti.
Thank you so much. I'm just going to take a second of my 8 minutes to say, holy, how fun. You guys are amazing. And I'm feeling very, very, following because that was awesome. So I'm going to read a little bit from Skyline. I write across a number of genres. This is one of my dystopian series. So Orly Bay has just caught her best friend, Laith Rasher, breaking the rules by investigating an area of the city that's been recently damaged by the mysterious rebels. Whatever it is you think you'll find on the other side of the boundary, I say, it can't be worth being sent to maintenance for the rest of your life, a fate worse than death, as far as I'm concerned. Laith flashes me a tight grin as though he's made some kind of decision, and I helped him arrive at it. We'll see, he says before stepping away from me, hand fishing out a rebreather from his back pocket, the cylinder blocking his mouth as he turns and touches the panel's edge with agile fingers. He enters a line of text that has me gaping. Where did he get an exit code? And then he steps back. The panel hums once before shuddering aside, the cold darkness beyond beckoning him, apparently, because he immediately enters. I need to go home, report him. I have to leave him to his own fate. But he's my friend, and with a groan of despair, I'm going to live to regret my terrible decision. I follow, my rebreather fished out of my bag, while I lurch for the slowly closing panel, rushing through to the other side. I make it, one hand rising to steady myself against Laith's back. He doesn't even twitch at my touch, the tight space between sections barely big enough for both of us. The chill cuts through my light jacket and coveralls, my face and hands suddenly tight with it, and I flash back to my first grade training. The cold I feel now is nothing compared to what's out there past the boundary. It's not until I feel a tug on my arm I realize I might have cleared the panel, but my backpack wasn't so lucky. I'm forced to let it drop, the strap hooked in the glass. I try to tell Laith to wait to help me free my bag. Nothing will look more suspicious than my satchel hanging in midair. But he's already finishing his typing, the next panel sliding open, and he's striding out into the bitter cold while I hesitate and finally follow. I have a clean record and a plan for the future, so I need things to stay that way. If we get caught, I'm going to kill him. I have to slow my breathing, the oxygen recycler already straining to support my panicked intake as the rebreather filters chug through a cartridge far too quickly. I only have 5 filters before I need to return inside, and I have a feeling Laith is going to be taking his sweet time. It's not like I expected to be out here or anything. The rebreather is meant for emergencies, for breaches in the city's walls, not for breaking the rules. I hover with my back pressed to the closed outer panel, gaze sweeping the residential street, though nothing about it is as it should be. One valiant light flickers in the distance, the rest shattered and dark, no taste making it through the breather's filters, even if the constructs continue to pump their artificial scent and flavor into the air. Intense discomfort averts my eyes from the withered remains of the trees lining the street. Laith circles them and carries on, as though he crosses the boundary every day. I take a bit more time to slow my breaths and then follow. I make the mistake of glancing at the line of buildings ahead. My gaze travels up along the rooftops to the sky that's not a sky I'm familiar with. Up and up, despite my best intentions, the falling darkness on the other side triggering panic all over again. Stars. An endless carpet of them stretching out into nothingness through the shattered rooftop panels, the curving, clouded planet 40,000 feet below, just visible as the blazing sun, the real one, sets over the corner of shattered glass and sends my senses reeling. Both hands cover my eyes, my rebreather's second filter sliding into place while I force myself into calm. When I look again, I keep my gaze firmly on the ground in front of me and allow myself to sink into the icy cold as a distraction. When I follow Lathe at last, it's on shaking legs, so I'm fortunate he hasn't gone too far. He looks up from something he's crouching over when I join him, his grim expression almost triumphant. I want to ask him what he's discovered, but his gray eyes are distant, and his rebreather masks his mouth, making communication impossible. He turns me around with both hands, my body twitching in response to his touch, and I allow him to push me gently back the way we've come. When he pauses and looks up, I grasp his hand and hold it tightly, fear returning. Lathe slides one arm around my shoulder, staring up into the expanse of stars beyond the city. His courage returns mine enough that I risk another peek. The sun blazes in the distance, so tiny and fragile in the vastness of space. I lean into Lathe, fighting off the terror that this fragility instills. The ruined planet below glows with golden haze, the surface masked, but I don't need to see it to know that nothing can exist down there anymore. Skyline's massive, sheltered tower, while an artificial recreation of what we used to have, reaches above that mist, protecting the last of humanity from disaster and extinction, thanks to the corporation that saved us. And that's it. And I'm doing a giveaway. There'll be 3 copies of the ebook going out if you fill out the form. Thanks for listening.
Wow. That was so much. Is there such a genre as thriller poetry? I kind of feel like there should be. I mean, this is going to be the new genre, thriller poetry. That was beautiful and intense and exciting and evocative, and I could see everything. Beautiful job. Fantastic. Well, and thank you, everybody. That has been our last reader. Thank you so much for everyone who came today.